hanging with me for a while know this is what I have in my hand is muti. Muti is from the Sangomas of South Africa, and it means power and medicine. True power is that which heals. So there's coyote hair and other fun things mixed in here. And so we say, O Spirit of the Compassionate Trickster, residing within each one of us, open the path before us that we may be of maximum good, danced into place where we can have the most serious fun possible. As I love as a fellow trickster ally of mine, David Grimes, says, if we're not having fun, we're just not serious enough. So we dived in. I just some weeks back got back from Baja, Mexico, right before the earthquake, where I was there seeing the gray whales of San Ignacio Lagoon. And it's this remarkable place. It's where the gray whales go to give birth at the end of one of their 5,000-mile migrations. And in February of 1972, after being hunted almost to extinction, a remarkable thing happened in the bay, which is there was a fisherman named Pachico Mayoral, and in his little boat, and this giant 40-foot gray whale came up beside him, and he was terrified, but it wouldn't go away, and then it kept kind of rubbing against the boat like a cat, so he began to pet it, and it loved that. And then it brought the other whales, and the mama whales brought their babies, and they began this thing, and Dick Russell, who wrote the book on gray whales, said it's kind of remarkable, this whole large field, because in February of 1972 was when the UN banned whaling, and when the Marine Mammal Protection Act was passed. And at that same month, the whales make their first friendly approach. They were feared before because they minded being killed, but once that calmed down, and it reminds us, even the most serious of scientists who go and who are incredibly moved by this eye gaze of the whales, as we all were, and the little babies coming up, and the wit and charm, and the coming up and then blowing, the mist on your face. You go, baptism, the best facial like ever, like, oh, wonderful, and very witty. And so the deepest scientists say, what if marine mammals always wanted to relate to humans with playful curiosity? It's just that our bad manners and habit of killing everything prevented them from doing that. So as we relax. So, the title of today is, whatever it is, what's wrong? Is Becoming Agents of Responsive Cool in a Hot Reactive Climate. So how many people, just even in the last week, have felt more opportunities for, very good, and the other ones of you are just completely enlightened. We'll talk about why, and how do we become agents of cool. Our word cool comes from Yoruba, kulu kulu, and it was popularized by jazz musicians in the 40s, and it meant completely responsible. And for the Yoruba, they remember what we want to remember, which is our language is magic. And so they say kulu kulu in Yoruba means cool temperature, just like it does in English. And so they said, with this word cool, imagine, and let's do that now, our heads as physically cool, and all that heat going down into our hearts. So it allows us to enter hot situations as agents of responsive cool rather than reactive heat. Now, we're going to speak about the connection of each one of us, micro to macro, our own personal interior lives connected to the vast ocean of the collective. And so I'm calling a whole bunch of my talks right now, cooperators are standing by. All of creation is awaiting, humans to be willing to rejoin with the collaborative dance. And we say, we as humans, as evidenced by the oil spills and everything going on that we will honor and go, we as humans can't resolve any of the innumerable problems and crises we've inflicted on our family, the family of the rest of creation, by ourselves. It's by ourselves that got us into this pickle. So we're going to talk about Pluto presenting each one of us with a giant composting cauldron, into which we might want to pour things that are no longer useful. And certainly the idea of by ourselves, that idea of, I like the idea of composting humanism, humans as the measure of all things. Let the truth of animism eclipse the hubris of humanism. We throw humanism in there. Going, all of creation, many of us notice that, animals are showing up, they're sending emissaries. When I was in Denver right before the Democratic Convention, I saw a creature I'd never seen ever before in the wild, let alone in downtown Denver, which was a bobcat. And I have a bobcat, and I took it as auspicious for the Democratic Convention because bobcats are considered kind of the feline tricksters. And I go, all right, feline tricksters here, the convention should be going pretty well, everybody on their better behavior. And it's as though all the animals are going, you go talk to the humans, no, you go. And, and whenever I run into an animal in the wild going, hello, I say, some of us are trying to be less rude. And they go, well, speed it up, will you? It's like a great ally, Stephen Buhner, that I have on the radio, the Visionary Activist show. And he said, he can diagnose the illness of people by walking around their house and seeing what plants are growing outside because the weeds are showing up to heal them. And this is so crucial. It's the idea that the antidote is at hand if we humans, I'll be doing a workshop or a trickster training, I prefer the term, tomorrow at, I think it's 7. And then Paul Stamets and I will be doing a public conversation on Sunday night. He of the great, cooperating with the mushrooms and the fungi. And years ago when I had him on the radio, I said, well, the mushrooms and fungi, they can metabolize poison and diesel oil spills and just fantastic things. And I said, what about depleted uranium? And he said, nothing in nature can metabolize radioactivity, but the little guys are working on it. And then some years later he came back and he said, well, they're working on it. All of nature is willing to address and help us remedy our own rudeness to come into balance because we've unleashed such forces in the world that everything's got to change and evolve at a more rapid rate. The trees, everything. We're in this highly experimental time period of experiment.